So tonight I'm going to be sharing a couple different viewpoints. I've been extremely concerned as I read and see certain things that are coming out in the news, whether it's mainstream media or whether it's alternative media. It really doesn't matter. It's all coming out about the same. And in essence, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about toxins. And I'm going to start with just a couple of different headlines that I have pulled up, and I just thought were very interesting to look at. My wife and I, obviously, we're not young in age, but we're not over the hill. I guess, well, maybe we are over the hill, whatever that means. But the bottom line is we want to be as healthy as possible. And it's just been my goal to not only do that, but to be of assistance to other people that may have questions or may have concerns or may be stuck in certain situations and they're trying to figure out what to do treatment wise or whatever the case may be. But we have a group of following of a lot of different doctors over in the Ohio area, and we're going to talk about that for a second. But let's just take a look at this headline. It says toxic grocery warning: 75% of our fresh non-organic produce in the USA is found to containing toxic pesticide. Well, it doesn't sound good to me. How about this one? Levels of dioxin, chemical that causes cancer, found to be unacceptably high levels in at Ohio train derailment. We all remember when that happened, and instead of gathering up the liquid, so to speak, that was on the ground, they decided to just light it and put it into the atmosphere. That was the stupidest thing I believe they could have done. But for a long time they were denying the fact that there was any problem. And the EPA finally came out and it admitted that there was a problem. So as you take a look at, different things, you've got to understand that you're going to be exposed to different toxins just in life. Let's take a look at this one. Chemical spill threatens water supply in major U.S. city. These are all things that have come up in the last couple, 2-3 weeks, right? Officials say it's now safe, or it's safe until 11:59 p.m. What does that mean? Does that mean all of a sudden they cleaned the water? Well, I'm sure that it explains it in the article, but this raises doubt. This puts doubt into what it is that we're consuming. So toxins can show up in a number of different ways, whether it's food, water, airborne, maybe it's direct contact, or maybe it's we're in the environment. We're in some area where we shouldn't be. And today we're going to take a second and talk about each one of these 5 different areas and see what it is that we can do to minimize it and minimize its effect on us as human beings, people that are occupying this crazy earth of ours, and how it is that we can be healthy and enjoy our years for years to come. And so as we take a look at this, one of the things I thought this was very interesting was really taking a look at what kind of toxins are we looking at. And if you really look at it, it's broken down into 2 different areas. It's either chemicals or it's either metals. And when I mean chemicals, it can come from a natural source. You can eat a plant or a mushroom that's toxic to your body, but it's basically a chemical that's found in that creates that reaction. Metals is something that we probably didn't have to worry about 100 years ago, but it seems like this industrial age that we have introduced on ourselves over the last 150 years has created the ability for metals to be absorbed into the body. Whether it's, as we mentioned earlier, whether it's in our foods, whether it's in our water, whether we're breathing it, whether we're touching it and playing with it, or we work at a steel factory. When I was a kid, I worked at a fiberglass company, and it was the worst job you could ever imagine. I would get up early in the morning, drive in for about an hour to work, and I would wear the same clothes every day because they would literally stand up. That's how bad the toxins were in the area. So if you can imagine the resin in the fiberglass, we would make bathtubs and canoes and shower curtains and that kind of thing. And it was terrible. And I remember going home to my dad saying, "This can't be good for me." I would go home and just strip everything off and get in the shower, and it never helped. And you would lay on the bed and just basically want to cry because you itched so bad. And I'm going, this is going into my system, and I can't imagine this being good. Well, these things are going into our systems all the time, all the time. So as we take a look at it, we need to look at it and say, okay, how do we know if we are exposed to a toxin? How do we know if we're toxic or not? And there's two ways of looking at this, and I'm going to kind of give you an understanding of some of the symptoms and things to watch for. But the bottom line is we're all being exposed. You've got to understand there's a certain amount of toxins that exist in our environment, in what we do, in our foods, in our water, in our job, or our vocation, what we're doing sometimes, whether you're cutting hair or you're, doing nails, or whether you work at even in a cabinet shop. I mean, all of this is exposing us. But there are two ways to look at it. We need to, number one, do what we can with what we are being exposed to. And B, if we happen to hit that toxic level, the extreme toxic level, almost too much, then we're going to show up, as I've got listed here, headaches, nausea, vomiting. I mean, I'm hoping that I never get toxic enough that I'm, nauseous and vomiting. I mean, think about it. Diarrhea, fatigue, dizziness, lightheadedness, difficulty breathing, skin irritation or a rash. I've had certain patients that have come in the office and their skin is just broken out. And I'm going, something you are exposed to, whether touching it or close to you or whatever, but something is creating that. Usually a skin issue, by the way, just a little thought, is usually a liver issue. So, or muscle pain, you'd be surprised at just the pain that people get when their bodies become toxic, especially with metals. Metals have a tendency to kind of coagulate, or I guess, or kind of, they sit and have a meeting, so to speak, in all of your joints. So, seizures, convulsions, even an extremely compromised immune system. Now, I pulled a couple slides over. I did a what do you call it? A little webinar right at the beginning of COVID. We had some insight as to what was going on with COVID, and I did a little webinar at that time. And it gave me the ability to I pulled some of those slides over there because I think compromised immune system has to be addressed, especially in today's date. I mean, the other day I saw some headline news where Bill Gates and Fauci were saying that we're going to have another pandemic in 2024. And I'm going, well, which crystal ball did they look at to do that? Other than the fact that they did the same thing, a couple, 2, 3, 4 years prior to COVID. And you're going, hold on, this just doesn't make sense. But whether it does or doesn't, it's just a matter of we need to do everything we can to prepare our bodies and be as ready to deal with whatever may be thrown at us in the future. So obviously from this slide you're looking at, you can see that we've got, the kidneys need to be cleaned. The liver needs to be cleaned. This is not just an explosive detoxification that you need to do one weekend, hanging close to your bathroom. This is something that needs to be very specific in supporting all of these organs. You take a look at it, the brain, the heart, your colon, obviously, immune system, which we're going to discuss a little bit more in detail on. And we need to take a look at what are the solutions that we can come up with. I mean, what can we do? What can we do that is easy? And what can we do that's maybe a little more costly or more expensive, because you've got to, go out and get something to actually cause a detoxification or a building up of the immune system happen. So I call those solutions. Number one is we've got to detox. You have got to get into a rhythm or a habit, so to speak, of doing everything you can to actually detox some of these toxins that you're getting put into your system. So for example, there's a product called Prep Tonic, and hold on, let's just pull back for a second. I'm going to talk to you about things that you can do that don't relate to supplements, but I'm also going to talk to you about very specific supplements that I have found that, well, the professional botanicals make something. Why would I make something if I didn't think it was important, right? And obviously I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give you a wherewithal as to what this is. Prep Tonic is a detoxification program that has been used by doctors since 1980. Only physicians had access to this. So if you can imagine, this gives us quite a capability of accessing stuff that you can't get at these, we'll call them big box stores or chain health food stores. If you did, you would be paying hundreds of dollars and trying to figure out what you're taking and how much. But I'm going to take a look at this one thing. It is designed to work on the liver, the kidney, the colon, clean out your lymphatic system. You know, one of the biggest problems that we've got with a lot of different buildup, or a lot of problems that people are having, is their lymphatic system, which is kind of like the plumbing system in the body. It hauls out all the dead tissue, is in essence just jumped up or gunked up, I guess is a good way. And you've got to liquefy that and move that out and get it out of your body. You know, get some free movement, get some things moving. You need to look at fibers, you need to look at enzymes, you need to look at probiotics. Very specific vitamins are needed, very specific minerals. This program also carries a big load of what are called adaptogens, which is a group of plants that have the ability to tackle whatever they feel are the biggest problem. And it's quite interesting. It's almost like you want to give them credit for going in the body and saying, woo, what does this person need? And how is it that we can adjust what is needed to give them better health or better balance? So, so this is a general deal. And I'm going to, in a second here, I'm going to talk about protocols. But Prep Tonic is used prior. Don't reach for this when you're dying from, you know, massive convulsions from being exposed to something. That's a whole different animal. But Prep Tonics, I can tell you, my family, and I've grown up with this. You know, this is Professional Botanicals is a family company. And I've grown up with this. My kids have grown up with this. My parents have grown up with this. And we clean, or are in the habit of doing a Prep Tonic every single change of season. It's almost the Chinese have developed that. That's been part of their Oriental medicine program for thousands of years, you know, for decades. And so as we look at this, you want to clean in the spring, you want to clean in the end of the summer, you want to end of fall, end of winter, you know what I mean? So you're doing it throughout the year. Right now is spring. It's the beginning of spring. And although we've got tons of snow, obviously, but the bottom line is it is the beginning of spring. And this is something that we're reaching for, my wife and I, and we highly recommend it for almost everyone. At the same time, there are very specific products that are needed if you become extremely toxic. For example, Cell Detox is a blood detoxifier. All right, metal detox is quite, you know, easy to understand what it is, but it's a metal detoxification program, and very specific. Sometimes a lot of metals will show up with either joint pain or brain fog. You just don't feel like you're thinking correctly. Just very, very foggy and very inability to concentrate, I guess is a good way to put that. The other one is what's called liver detox plus Silymarin. And I'm going to talk with you about this one because it has a very, very specific purpose. And that purpose is to help rebuild liver tissue. I'm going to give you a story here. My father got a call from a physician up in Oregon, and it was in the middle of the night, pretty much about 3 a.m, and woke him up and said, you know, Chuck, hey, this is la-di-da doctor. I just had 3 people walk into my office that have gone up in the mountains and have consumed the wrong mushrooms. And I know that historically the liver detox plus Silymarin has the ability to reverse that. Do you know where I can find some? This is 3 in the morning. We don't have the ability to overnight it to them, right? You don't have the ability to mail it up there. You've got to find some locally. And luckily, the two of the patients, two of the people who weren't all patients for this doctor, but 2 of them went one direction and got the product from another doctor that was, like a half an hour away, got it, and they consumed it. The other one went to the hospital. He went another direction. And in essence, what happened, to make a long story very short, is the one passed away and the other 2 recovered. Liver Detox Plus, we just kind of shortened it down, but it's plus Silymarin. Liver Detox has the ability to rebuild degenerative or sclerotic liver tissue. It's just powerful. So it liquefies the bile and then assists in rebuilding those tissues. Very, very powerful. I got to be careful what I say because I don't want to get in trouble with any FDA or anything. So I've got to say that it supports a proper, healthy liver and liver function. So those are 3 reach to products that you want to go for when you've got that stuff that's on that list, right? That is too much, right? So let's take a look. What would be a good protocol that you could adapt or have in front of you that would kind of give you, just an understanding, kind of like a game plan of what to do with these toxins. Number 1, drink a quart of water for every 50 pounds of body weight. I've got to tell you, the majority of people out there are sick and are toxic simply because their body can't rid those toxins appropriately and they're extremely dehydrated. You would be so surprised at the number of blood tests that we do here in the office where we're looking at, okay, what possibly could be a problem here, and here. And you're going through this, and 90% of the time it comes up first thing on the list, patient may be not detox, but may be dehydrated, right? So hydration is number 1. Number 2, eat clean foods. Eat clean foods. If you knew what was inside your foods and they had some sort of discoloration to it that kind of made it an apple not look like an apple, you wouldn't want to eat it. Well, imagine that they've created a lot of these toxins, a lot of these pesticides, and a lot of these chemicals where you can't see them. You just have to trust that either A, that food is clean, or B, purchase from a different source, purchase from a clean source. Even organic food, which is supposedly better, you definitely want to be purchasing from a good source. Third one, limit your exposure. I'm telling you that if you live around an area that has a problem with a train wreck that's dumped toxins all over everywhere, or you live, next to an old chemical plant, or I'm going to give you an example here in Utah. Back after World War II, there is an area south of the Great Salt Lake where they have stored all of the bio weapons. You know what I mean? The toxic bio warfare weapons, and they're all stored there. And I talked to a person that was in the news, and they said, you know how many canisters? I was like 165,000 canisters of this stuff. And they said, well, it's not a big deal. We only have an exposure or a leak 1 out of maybe 1,000. Or no, it wasn't one. It was like more like 1 out of 100. And it was so funny because like 2 weeks thereafter, there was this article in the paper, and they were asking for volunteers to go pick up all the dead birds in this area. And we're going, hello, who wants to go out there? If you've got a toxin that is killing all of the birds in the area, why would you want to be the guy that goes out and picks them up, right? In other words, limit your exposure. Pick your battles on this earth. There's no reason to expose yourself and to be in an area that is a problem. There's definitely no reason for it. Problem that we've got is everything might be nice and clean and safe, and all of a sudden you've got a train that comes through and decides, oh, by the way, we're going to change everything for you. I feel for all of us because we are how do you say this? We're vulnerable to have this kind of thing happen to us. So I don't know. If I lived in Ohio, you would have to move. You would have to move. As far as in that area by East Palestine. But at the same time, you've got to look at the other repercussions. I mean, what effect is there to the water? What effect is there to the foods that are grown in that area? I mean, this is an area that produces a lot of produce. How about the animals, the ones that don't die, but they stay living? Would you want to eat their food, eat their meat? I don't know. I mean, I'm hypothesizing a little bit here, but I'm just giving you an idea that we need to limit our exposure to problems. So as you look ahead, as far as protocol, those three things are going to be super important. Next, in my family, we reach for Prep Tonic. It's a detox. And it's a 10-day program, very easy. Obviously, you keep your water up during this time, but it's a very easy, non-explosive, most people feel really good doing it. And, if you're super toxic, you may need to do 2 of them in a row. But the bottom line is usually you're doing 1 every 90 days. That is a very good protocol to get on. Then you want to take a look and go through symptoms. Maybe it's blood work or whatever to find out if there is either a blood toxicity going on or heavy metals, or if we've got an extreme chemical toxicity happening also. So these are very specific products that you may need some help with in making a determination if these are something that you need to be consuming or not. So I'm going to do a little review. Let's just take a look at this. As I mentioned, I brought over a couple slides to review off of our immune system protocol that are actually the conversation that we had a couple of years prior to COVID. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up was at that time we were talking about very specific things that had the ability to boost the immune system. And we were out. I'll tell you the whole story on this one. We were out of our product, very, very famous product called Viral Aid. Obviously, it works on viruses. And it just sold out fast. And I was laying there in bed. This is a 2 o'clock in the morning thing. And I said, there's got to be something else we can do to help. And obviously, the supply chain at that point was just horrendous. Trying to get everything in and make sure it's clean, make sure it is what it is. And, it's not some filler. And I mean, to really give it the A+ thing, we wanted to make sure that we had something else. And I'm just going, yeah, what is it? And I remember waking up about 3:30 in the morning that one day and just going, I need to go take a look at these green plants. And so I went in and pulled up all the PubMed, pulled up all the research, and boom, lo and behold, it's like this little mini revelation, so to speak, that we have a formula that is extremely powerful with building your immune system, specifically increasing your body's ability to battle viruses, not only everything else. It's called Green Complex. We actually renamed it to what is called ImmuStem. So there's a lot of you that are, that have heard about us through the radio, through the George Norrie program. And I know that, this product, the Green Complex, is equal to the ImmuStem that is highly utilized from that program. So Green Complex or ImmuStem, they're the same product, just a little bit different name, a little different level or label, excuse me. The other one is what's called Adaptostem. Now, Adaptostem is a group of plants that are probably 99% adaptogens. Actually, they're 100%, that have the ability to help the body, support the body in any which way it needs to go. And it's just a 1-2 punch along with the ImmuStem or Green Complex. The other thing that I would highly recommend in building and keeping a strong immune system is vitamin D3 with K2. And so those three become kind of the stable of be on those every day type deal, build the wall up a little bit. There was one other product that I wanted to talk about specifically, and it's called ImmuGuard. Along with those three, ImmuGuard is, well, let me tell you a little story on it. And I'm trying to make this a little shorter, but after Chernobyl back in the mid 80s, when Chernobyl happened, my father and a good friend of his, was Jacques Cousteau's personal doctor. So he traveled the world, and he was utilized by the Japanese when they, after Hiroshima, to ascertain what kind of problems they would have in their food supply, specifically the fish, because he had a lot of research done with marine life. Well, anyway, they get a call after Chernobyl, and they said, "Look, our people over here need help." This is the Soviet Union, and they said, "We need to do something for these people. Bruce, can you come over and help us with this?" And so he obviously jumped on a plane, went over, did a look-see of what was happening, came back, and they built 3 different formulas. And those formulas, one of them they couldn't make because they couldn't get the ingredients inside the United States at the time. But the other 2 formulas we have, and one of those is ImmuGuard. And the way they found out that these were effective is they actually, once they built these formulas, the 2 formulas, they did a run of about 250 bottles of each of them, and they took them. Actually, China opened their door and said, "We have," because China's pretty close to Chernobyl too. I mean, it's right there, the whole area. And but China opened its door and said, "We have a hospital that is run by our military," and Bruce knew the military over in China just because of some connections with Jacques Cousteau. And they said, "We will allow you to bring your formulas over. We know what kind of testing." They did blood work. They did all these different panels and ascertained whether it was effective or not. And they were super excited at the end of this. It took about 2 weeks, and they says, "Okay, this is an A plus." So he took those bottles and took them over to Chernobyl to distribute, to give to the people in that area. So that's the history behind this product that I'm talking to you about right in front of us, ImmuGuard. And I have moved it up the chain, so to speak, to where I think it, along with those other 3, are the things that a person should take on a daily basis. Now, they don't need to take a lot, right? In fact, if I was to look at a protocol, and we're going to look at it in a second, I'll give you how much you should take on each one of those. But just understand that because of our current situation and because of our insults that we take into our immune system via toxins and potentialities that we have in the world, this is right now something that we all need to be on to assist our body in dealing with everything from chemicals, metals, ionic, any kind of toxin that we have that we could be exposed to. This is an assisted support for protecting against that. So obviously we've got the cell. As you take a look at the cell, viruses are separate from the cells. Basically, viruses, for them to be able to replicate, they have to be able to penetrate the cell and go inside that cell to be able to replicate. And it's almost like you want to take this and draw this and put this inside this, and then it builds up. It just builds a whole bunch of these little dudes, and it gets to a point where it basically just kind of explodes. And next thing you know, you've got these going out and going to all of these different other cells in different directions. So if you can imagine, that is very unique. It's not like a bacteria. I mean, a bacteria, it basically grows outside of the cells, has the ability to affect everything because it's just outside there. This actually goes inside the cell, which makes it very difficult to deal with. But if you look at it and you go, all right, how can we fight against this? there are certain things that are found in ImmuStem or in green complex that has the ability to increase the body's, how do you say this? The body's warning system that all of these little cells or these viruses are sitting and floating out here, or you've got this little indicator on the outside of these cells that'll tell you, hey, I've got a virus in here growing. I mean, imagine it'd be like, having some sort of alien growing inside your stomach, and you're trying to tell somebody, hey, I've got an alien inside me. And the body has the ability to do that, but you want to be able to have those soldiers, so to speak, ready to be able to just handle that. As you take a look, there is one other product that's a reach to, and it's when we have been exposed to a lot, and we actually are on this ImmuCell is a step up, and it's the other formula that I talked about, as far as Chernobyl goes. But it's really when you're a little bit more down the road and being sick, so it's a reach to at that point. There are a group of, and I apologize if that's creating a little noise, but the little thing in my ear is kind of falling out here. But as you take a look at these, Co-Resist is another. Co-Resist is a formula that contains zinc, C, all those things that you need to be able to combat and also attack. So these are different lineups that we have. Viral Aid. These are the ones that when you're sick, these are the ones you reach for. And your protocol on those just may be a little stronger. I can tell you that if I'm sick, I'm not going to pussyfoot around and only take one or two products. I'm going to be taking everything I can. I got a call from a guy yesterday, and he says, I need help. And I says, what's the deal? And he says, I can't breathe, I can't this, and a whole list of things. And I'm going, dude, have you been taking this, this, and this? And he goes, well, no, I've been taking a little bit. I only take 2 a day. And I'm going, take 9 a day. Basically, when you're dying of being sick, don't hold back. Go for it. These natural products, you got to take a lot of them to create an overdose situation. I'm just giving that. And if you're ever have a question about all this, you can always call the office. The office is set up. We have our customer service people are set up to know what to do and what not to do. And if they don't, there's 2 physicians here, and we have the ability to help in the background to be able to help them out. But if you step back and I go, okay, first of all, we need to have the basics: the green complex or ImmuStem, the Adaptostem, and a vitamin K. This is what I recommend taking: 2 capsules, and 1 capsule of each of those. Usually, we need to rebuild or build up a strong wall of immune system, and that takes a couple capsules daily to be able to do this of ImmuGuard. Then you're looking at, if you become compromised, these are the ones you reach for. So hopefully you've got the ability to take notes on these slides, or I think they're going to be available for you, to be able to take a look at. But because this is what you need to know. And some of these things you need to have in your quote unquote medicine cabinet or your cupboard that has all that stuff in it that that you reach for when you're having a need. So I hope this has been helpful. We've talked about toxins, we've talked about the immune system a lot. This is real. I'm not exactly a webinar type of person all the time. I'm doing this because I see a need, and I see it with my patients, I see it with my family, and hopefully this has been helpful to you. And I thank you very much. Thank you.